Only a few hours left before the polls open. Find out what election officials are saying about voter turnout.
And the battle continues over Proposition 187. We'll have a live report from Southern California.
The judge in the O.J. Simpson case makes a ruling on cameras in the courtroom. Find out his decision.
And Mother Nature brings rain and snow to Northern California. Is there more in store?
Good evening, I'm Kelly Brothers.
And I'm Sarah Gardner. The Primetime News is next.
It's 10 p.m. and you're watching the Primetime News on Channel 58. With Kelly Brothers, Sarah Gardner, weather with Shelly Monahan, Eric McLendon on sports, home of Michael Kidd and Live Copter 3, and Northern California's #1 news team. This is the Primetime News.
I expect an increase in voter turnout tomorrow. It's going to reverse a trend of declining participation over the last 4 elections, so I'm encouraged by that.
Only 9 hours to go before the polls open, and California's Secretary of State is predicting one of the best voter turnouts in state history. An election eve look at preparations for the 1994 gubernatorial election is our top story tonight. State officials predict 8.8 million Californians will vote in tomorrow's election. That would be 60% of registered voters, a hefty turnout for a non-presidential election year. At this point, more than 14,700,000 people have registered to vote, a record for a gubernatorial election. That's an increase of more than 500,000 compared to the June primary. Breaking that down by party, 49% are Democrat, 37% Republican. Secretary of State Tony Miller says the debate over Proposition 187 is what's fueling voter interest.
Clearly, it's Proposition 187. There's a great deal of energy, both pro and con, with respect to that important proposition. That's energizing people. They're coming out, many people who would have otherwise stayed home.
By the way, the polls open at 7 tomorrow morning and close at 8 tomorrow night. Kelly?
A final chance to press the flesh had candidates for senator and governor campaigning throughout the day in the state, trying to drum up some last-minute votes. The races between Dianne Feinstein and Mike Huffington and Pete Wilson and Kathleen Brown are coming right down to the wire. Tonight, the candidates didn't waste any of their precious final moments of the campaign, with Governor Pete Wilson stumping in San Diego and Kathleen Brown in Los Angeles. Today, a campaign advisor for Governor Wilson predicted all this last-minute stumping by the Brown camp is for naught, saying it would be a miracle if Kathleen Brown wins tomorrow's election. One day before Election Day, Wilson leads in the polls and appears confident, but he's playing it safe, focusing on the economy.
At least 225,000 new jobs will be created in California in 1995.
Kathleen Brown is concentrating on low-income Democrats who don't usually vote in an off-year election. She is hoping to capitalize on a big turnout of voters who intend to vote no on 187.
Will you help me send a message that the politics of hate and the politics of intolerance and the politics of division will not be tolerated in California?
Meanwhile, Mike Huffington and Dianne Feinstein continue to exchange barbs. At a press conference in Sacramento today, Huffington accused Feinstein of hypocrisy for what he says was her hiring of an illegal immigrant in the early 80s.
Mrs. Feinstein has lied.
In front of a very friendly crowd at UC Davis, Dianne Feinstein spent most of her time itemizing her 2-year Senate record, telling voters not to allow Huffington to buy the Senate seat.
A United States Senate seat should be earned. If you match my opponent's record, he went to the House of Representatives at the same time I did. What has he done?
Prop 187 is clearly the closest and the most controversial of all the ballot measures this year. It is hoped that the passions for and against that measure will get people to go to the polls. Sarah?
The debate over Proposition 187 has been heating up in recent weeks, and today there were more protests over the measure that would deny medical and educational benefits to illegal immigrants. In Sacramento, opponents of 187 walked precincts and called voters, urging them to vote no. Workers walked off their jobs in the Los Angeles garment district. The mostly Hispanic crowd then marched on to City Hall. But backers of 187 say despite the protests, they believe the measure will pass. We'll have more on Prop 187 in a live report from Los Angeles later on in this newscast. Be sure and join us tomorrow night at 10 for a special election edition of the Primetime News. We'll have the latest voting tallies from California and around the country. Again, that's tomorrow night at 10 o'clock.
In other news tonight, firefighters in Southern California now say a housing tract is out of danger from a brush fire that burned close enough to scorch a few backyards. The blaze broke out this evening in the City of Industry. Flames raced up a hillside and threatened several homes. Ground crews had a hard time getting to the fire, but an air tanker arrived in time to beat back the flames. The fire burned about 3 acres. Also in Southern California, cameras will keep rolling in the O.J. Simpson trial despite a flood of mail from the public asking the judge to pull the plug. Judge Lanzito brought a stack of cartons to court today containing 15,000 letters, 12,000 of those letters urging him to ban media cameras. But media lawyers pointed out that judges aren't subject to public opinion polls.
Nor in this case can a minority not subject to any scientific polling techniques, not subject to any kind of restrictions, dictate what the court should do simply because they would rather watch All My Children.
Judge Ito also heard arguments on whether to exclude evidence taken from Simpson's Bronco. He delayed decision until later this week.
In another highly publicized case, the lawyer for a woman accused of killing her children is lashing out at the media tonight. Newsweek magazine has printed an account of Susan Smith's confession. The article claims she watched her son Michael struggle to get out of his car seat as he and his brother drowned in a South Carolina lake.
I did apprise Judge Hayes of the Newsweek story, which includes a false, in fact a made-up version of Susan Smith's description of this terrible tragedy.
Susan Smith remains under a suicide watch in a South Carolina prison tonight.
Turning to the weather tonight, Mother Nature, of course, over the weekend brought us some much-needed rain and snow to Northern California. But is it enough to turn around a dry year? Roy Stearns has some answers in this report.
You were looking at 20 and 30-pound Chinook salmon, the fall salmon run, heading up the fish ladders at Nimbus Fish Hatchery in Rancho Cordova. It's a run this year that has fish and game people excited.
I think the rain that we had this weekend helped to drop the temperature in the river down to actually 59 degrees. So we were waiting for 60 to open the ladder.
Now, about that storm over the weekend, 8 to 10 inches of rain, 30 inches of snow. It hit the Highway 50 Interstate 80 corridor dead center. The northern edge passing through Chester, Lake Almanor, the southern edge through Yosemite. A welcome sight to state water people.
Yeah, this is exactly what we had gotten used to back in the early 80s.
In other words, winter is looking near normal so far, and only near normal because of the tally so far from the state, averaging out the rainfall in all Northern California for this date. Last year we were at 2.6 inches. This year today we're at 4.1 inches. Normal being 4.7, so we're at near normal at 87%. So what did this near normal do for reservoirs and runoff?
Actually, we haven't seen that much increase in runoff as a result of the storm, and that's probably because the ground is still fairly dry. Now, what will be key is what do we see if this storm on Wednesday amounts to something?
In Sacramento, Roy Stearns, Channel 3 reports.
Wouldn't that be nice? Things heated up today for the crew of the Space Shuttle Atlantis. We'll explain just ahead.
And find out how a Northern California college is becoming instrumental in space research.
A young girl in Israel is learning the true meaning of peace. Find out how a peace treaty may help her live.
And we'll tell you why these newborn polar bears are so special to a Colorado zoo.
And in weather, will that storm on Wednesday amount to anything? We'll let you know about that, and also some problems with fog.
As the hours wind down to tomorrow's election, Prop 187 is on the minds of many, and a lot of the emotion is coming from Southern California, areas closest to the border. Christina Gonzales joins us live from Los Angeles with more on the initiative. Christina?
Well, I'll tell you, loud anti-187 voices echoed all over the city today. The pro-187 side quieter, but still strong. They seem to come from everywhere. Hundreds of people finally taking over the steps of City Hall. Students who walked out of class. Garment workers who marched from Adams carrying Mexican and American flags. Saying tomorrow the vote will decide whether we'll be treated like animals or human beings. While some marched, others drove. Dozens of trucks driven by members of the Latin American Truckers Association convoyed from the Port of L.A. towards City Hall. They drove by even more anti-187 protests, these dubbed as human billboards. Meanwhile, in front of McLaren Hall, L.A. Supervisor Yvonne Brathwaite-Burke talked about the effects of 187 on some of the children who end up at this child neglect treatment center.
And 187, if it passes, will severely affect these children. It will cut the funds for children's well-being.
Assemblyperson Richard Mountjoy, one of the authors of 187, looks at all of this in disbelief.
I had no idea that it would explode to worldwide proportions.
But none of it is changing his mind.
The protesters are, and the kids especially, are prompted by the teachers.
Whether that's true or not, teachers did make a strong stand against 187 in front of the school board.
Today we present to you the pledges of 1,210 teachers and school staff in LA Unified who will not comply with this scenario if Prop 187 passes.
It's not a racial issue at all. It's up to the people. They can either accept 187 and pass it and stop the benefits from going to those that are illegally here in this country, or they cannot.
And as dark settles across L.A. on this election eve, the protests continue with candlelight vigils, a final push to get people to the polls. Now, voter turnout, that will decide the issue according to most experts. Low voter turnout probably meaning 187 will pass, a tight race either way. Live in downtown Los Angeles, I'm Christina Gonzales. Back to you, Sarah. Kelly?
All right, Christina, thank you very much. Crew members aboard the Space Shuttle Atlantis are learning more about how ultraviolet rays affect the Earth's depleting ozone layer. Flying 190 miles above the Earth, the astronauts are using two high-tech instruments to study solar energy. This is NASA's last scheduled mission for 1994. Atlantis will touch down on the 14th of this month. Meanwhile, here in Northern California, a community college has taken what could be a giant step in space technology. Sierra College in Rockland has developed an instrument that has been used now on 2 shuttle missions. NASA returned the instrument over the weekend. A class led by Professor Mike Dobeck developed the spectrometer to measure the Earth's ozone layer. Their creation is much more sophisticated than NASA's old instruments, and it costs only about $20,000.
In the class, there were 50 or so people, but a core design team on this instrument of 4 primary people.
I'm real happy right now. The data does look good. It's come out with the standard profile that we had expected.
If the spectrometer works as well as expected, NASA could end up using it for all future shuttle flights.
In headlines from around the world tonight, the U.S. is keeping troops in the Kuwaiti desert ready for combat.
That despite President Clinton saying that soldiers should be home by Christmas. American paratroopers were joined by Kuwaiti and British soldiers over the weekend for military exercises. The troops were called into the Gulf region after a threat by Iraqi forces stationed near the border.
A follow-up now on a 12-year-old Jordanian girl in need of a bone marrow transplant. The young girl is preparing for surgery thanks to a peace agreement between Israel and Jordan. Doctors in Jordan said they could not help her, so she'll now be able to get the transplant in Israel.
And in Italy, torrential downpours continue to spark widespread flooding and have claimed dozens of lives. The rainstorms caused landslides that swept away homes, and floodwaters trapped many people in their cars. Forecasters are calling for more rain, and rivers are expected to go even higher before they crest.
Well, unlike the situation in Italy, rainfall here in Northern California has been good news.
Let's take a live look outside tonight. It's a cool one. Shelly in next to tell us if there is more rain on the way.
Okay. Well, a nice-sized storm moved through the area this weekend, and we've got another one on tap for Wednesday.
Another one on tap for Wednesday and another one on tap for Saturday.
Just line them up.
Line them up, bring them on through. That's right. We're going to check, first of all, over the Sierra. We have had some beautiful snowfall over the mountains the last couple of days. Snowfall totals ranging anywhere between about 1 and 2.5 feet. It's not enough for all of the ski resorts to open. Nonetheless, it is some very good news. So far, both Boreal and Mammoth are open. Bear Valley sending us a fax this afternoon. They're planning on opening up on Thanksgiving Day. It will be interesting, though, once we hit these storms later this week to see exactly how much more snow we do pick up. Today's high temperatures in the valley, 63 in Sacramento and Modesto, 64 in Stockton and Marysville. Over in the Bay Area, 61 in San Francisco, and a daytime high of 41 at South Lake Tahoe. Here are the forecast low temperatures tonight. It is getting cold over the Rockies. The northern and central Rockies expecting overnight lows tonight down into the teens and 20s. Both Wyoming and Utah are gearing up for a good dose of snow both tonight and tomorrow. Here are the forecast highs tomorrow, only in the 30s for daytime highs in Wyoming. We are going to see some pretty good snowfall of our own over the next couple of days as yet another storm system approaches the coast of Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. In the meantime, across the nation, give you a look here at satellite imagery tonight. You can see this is the remnants of our storm over the weekend. As it's progressing eastward, it is hitting the Rockies rather hard. They're receiving gusty winds and some pretty good snowfall, so keep that in mind if you're traveling to places like Salt Lake City or Denver over the next few days. It looks like they went right from summer to winter and bypassed fall, and that's where they're going to stay. For us tonight, the big problem actually tonight and tomorrow morning will be the fog. We do have the potential in areas for dense fog to form. The residual moisture is at the surface right now, so because of that, the National Weather Service has issued a dense fog advisory for the Bay Area, both the Sacramento and San Joaquin valleys. There it is. What do you think? This one moving onshore late tomorrow afternoon and evening and on into Wednesday. What we're going to see is sunshine tomorrow once the fog burns off, but it'll be short-lived because increasing clouds move in tomorrow night. The rain moves in by Wednesday, so it looks like we're in that time of year. Over the Sierra, a few lingering showers reported late this afternoon and this evening, mostly just some drizzle up at the higher elevations. Tonight you should clear out, see some fog forming in your area. Tomorrow, sunshine to begin with, but very briefly you're looking at increasing clouds with snow moving back into the Sierra by Wednesday. Over the foothills, you're looking at partly cloudy skies tomorrow as the clouds start to roll on in. Possibility of some areas of dense fog, especially as you head up Highway 49. And again, reminding you in the Bay Area, there is a dense fog advisory in effect for the San Francisco Bay region. It'll burn off to some afternoon sunshine, but remember, all of us are not going to see much sunshine tomorrow because as you saw on satellite imagery, that storm system is fast approaching the coast. Here in the valley, we're looking for the possibility of some very dense fog, especially in the southern Sacramento area and northern San Joaquin Valley. The extended forecasts, like you said, Kelly, line them up, bring them through one right after another. Upper 50s, low 60s will be in between storms briefly tomorrow, in between storms late Thursday and on into Friday. Wednesday, we're looking at cloudy, rainy conditions. Thursday, we'll still see scattered showers tapering off very slowly, and then another one on Saturday.
Woo. And this storm Wednesday is going to be a little cooler than the last one. I know the snow level was kind of high over the weekend.
It was. Over the weekend, the snow level ranging between about 6 and 6,500 feet. It looks like this one will probably drop the snow level down to about 4,500 to 5,000, so colder air.
Getting exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Thanks, Shelly.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Well, the last person to finish the New York City Marathon comes in 27 hours after the race began. We'll tell you what makes this finisher so special.
And the Cowboys take on the New York Giants tonight. Eric's in next to tell us if they rode off with a victory.
Tonight's sports is brought to you by The Money Store.
Pretty easy tune-ups for both the Niners and the Cowboys.
Yes.
I guess, huh?
Boy, I tell you, this is going to be a great week. It really is.
Yeah.
Sunday's going to be...
Can you say hype?
Well,
hype.
What's bigger than hype? You think about that. I don't know either. But we're going to find out by the end of the week, I think. All right, let's get it on. I know it's only Monday, but let the games begin. Now, nothing stands in the way of the pre-playoff showdown between the Niners and the Cowboys. The Pokes finished off their last bit of business tonight on Monday Night Football against the Giants of New York. And things got a little out of hand just before halftime, and little tempers flaring. This is Troy Aikman dropping back to pass. He finds Alvin Harper in the end zone for the touchdown. He takes it up and spikes it over the goalpost, and actually had the goalpost a little crooked there at one point in the game. 7-0 Dallas. Emmitt Smith bolting in for the touchdown. He had 163 yards rushing and a Cowboy record 35 carries, 21-3 Dallas. Darrell Johnson, following a fumble, takes it in from 9 as the Cowboys just roll over the Giants. 38-10 your final score. The first place Sacramento Kings take on the first place Seattle Supersonics on Wednesday. sort of has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Enjoy it while you can, folks. A light schedule on the court tonight, just 3 games on tap. One of them, the Spurs against the Nets, and of course, making fun of the incident that happened last week with the water pistol incident. The guy wore his raincoat inside. That is David Robinson, and he had his 10,000th career point tonight. This is David with a nice behind-the-back pass to Sean Elliott, who nails the three-pointer. Then Chuck Person, one of the newest Spurs, will pull up. He stops, he pops, he drops a three-pointer. Spurs win this one 105-96 over the Nets. NBA board, Sixers fall to the Bulls in Chicago, 98-83. And the Hawks, who will be in town on Saturday to face the Kings, fall to the Jazz, 104-86. Hello. One of the world's greatest races is finally over, although race watchers had to stick around an extra day to see the final runner cross the finish line at the New York City Marathon. Yesterday's New York City Marathon will always be remembered for the wrong turn in the final mile, which nearly cost Herman Silva the title. But perhaps the real champion of yesterday's race is 47-year-old Zoe Kaplowitz. You see, Zoe has multiple sclerosis and finished the race this morning, more than 27 hours after she started.
Take the best day in your entire life and multiply it by 10,000. And that's what you got. A message for everybody. Have a dream, make a plan, go after it.
Zoe walked the entire 26.2 miles with the help of a cane. Not only was it a long and grueling journey, it was also dangerous. Last night she met up with the Guardian Angels, who escorted her through some of New York's most crime-ridden neighborhoods. Yesterday's race marked her 7th New York City Marathon, and she can't wait to do it again next year. But Zoe's most immediate goal is to go home and soak her feet.
There's nothing special about me whatsoever. I just keep putting one foot in front of the other till I get where I gotta go. And that's what a lot of life is about. There's so much magic along the way, but to get to the magic, you've got to do the hard work.
I think she could teach folks a few things.
I think she has.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think she really
Good
has,
for
yeah.
Zoe. And it looks like she had a lot of support as well.
Absolutely, she did. A lot of determination in that lady.
All right. Thanks, Eric. Well, there's a celebration going on at a Colorado zoo tonight.
Just ahead, we'll tell you what makes these furry little creatures so dang special. Now for a look at what's coming up at 11 over on Channel 3, let's go to Lois Hart in the newsroom. Lois.
Kelly, coming up in just 30 minutes over on Channel 3, some hot races and some very controversial propositions have Californians registering to vote in record numbers. But will they turn out to vote tomorrow?
Prolific comet discoverer alive today in the Western Hemisphere.
That's you.
That's me.
And move over, Copernicus and Halley. A modern-day astronomer is charting comets never before identified. And tonight, in special assignment, we'll take a look at his meteoric rise. Get it? Meteoric rise?
Yeah, I got that one. Thanks, Lois. We'll see you then.
Finally tonight, the Denver Zoo has 2 tiny additions tonight. The male and female polar bear cubs were born over the weekend at the zoo. They are the first successful polar bear births at the zoo since 1977. They were abandoned by their mothers, so zookeepers are caring for them around the clock. The cubs weigh less than a pound each, but if they make it through this critical period, the Arctic creatures could grow to around, get this, 1,400 pounds. And aren't they adorable?
Look at something small get so big. Eat a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Stay tuned now for Inside Edition.
Have a good night.